Welcome to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast with Darren Mitchell. If you're a sales leader looking to take your leadership to a whole new level, then this is the podcast for you. We'll be exploring tips, techniques, and strategies to help you take your leadership to the exceptional level and allow you to enjoy more money, more meaning, and better sales results. Welcome back to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast, and welcome to a man by the name of Simon Ooley, coming in from Santa Barbara, California. But he has shared with me before we pressed record that he's spent a few years down under, and he knows a little bit about AFL football and rugby, which is, I've got to say, mate, it's quite unique for an American to know anything about the football game that is national to Australia. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. And yes, I loved AFL when I lived in Australia, and it's almost impossible to watch any matches now that I live back in the States.
Well, surely there's a thing called the internet that you could sort of jump in and watch a few things.
That's true. But timing is always a little bit difficult with the time change. So the Swans play in the evenings, and that's a little tough being back on the West Coast.
Yeah, because you'd be probably looking at the back of your eyelids at that particular time.
Exactly.
Well, actually, when
I'm a little
I was
older now, I don't work quite as late as I used to. So that's prime time sleeping for me.
Well, exactly right. And you also mentioned you've got a 20-month-year-old daughter as well that needs to sleep, and probably you need to take the opportunity to sleep when she's sleeping. Otherwise,
yes,
you never get some sleep.
There's a gamble after 5 a.m. We don't know when she'll wake up, so we got to take our time before then to really get as much sleep as we can.
Love it. Hey, Simon, thanks for jumping on the podcast. You're the CEO and co-founder of Veles and a collaborative AI workspace for enterprise sales. You've got an eclectic mix and an extensive experience in selling. You mentioned before we press record that you've had some experience, obviously, in Australia, selling to some big iconic brands in Australia. We're going to talk about all things sales and probably helping sales and sales leaders become more effective at what they're doing today, and maybe using some technology and some principles to do that. Love to know, as I always delve into with my guests, the background, the Simon story. Where did it start, and specifically, just talk us through the evolution that's led you to do what you do today.
Yeah, absolutely. I started my sales career as a BDR. So 2013, 2014, took up the phones and started cold calling. I like to say, and I become a broken record with this, but I have BDRs now at Veles. And so I always look back at my time fondly as a BDR.
Yeah.
Although I will say I started in what I consider the ZERP era. I don't know if you're familiar with the concept of ZERP, but basically it's commonly used in venture capital for the period of time that there was zero interest. So money was flying everywhere. I like to think of my time as a BDR in the ZERP era of BDR because I can just send more emails and people just responded to more emails. I could just make more calls and people just picked up more calls. And so the ability for you to just work harder and achieve more with very little technology was right there front and center. It's a little different nowadays. So you have to take new approaches to outbound. Cold calling still absolutely works, but it's just a little bit different these days. So I started my career out as a BDR. Early on, I was finding a lot of success in my BDR role at Procore, which is the first kind of tech company that I started with. Throughout that time, I identified there was a bunch of Australians calling and wanted to buy Procore, and there were no sales reps to sell it to them after hours. And so, funny enough, I raised my hand. I went to our CRO at the time and said, "Hey, you don't have to pay me anymore, but can I just work after hours and sell to these Australian people?" And they were like, "Sure, absolutely. We don't have to pay you more, and you're going to work more. Sure." So I did, and I actually ended up closing a handful of deals before anyone really realized I was doing anything.
Yeah.
And that turned into moving to Australia, opening an office in Sydney, going from 0 to 10 million in ARR, and it's now $100 million plus business unit for Procore down in Sydney. And it was just an incredible journey from BDR to kind of every level of AE.
Yeah.
I went on to lead some teams, become head of sales at another org, and all through that journey, just like really cared about how do exceptional sellers become better, and then how do you, with like rising boat or rising tide lifts all boats, how do we make every other seller just as good as those top performers?
Yeah.
And that's kind of driven me through my career, and also the entire reason why I started Veles after a decade in sales.
Wow. So I was going to ask you the biggest lesson through that process. So coming to Australia, um, working your way through from a BDR up to a senior AE, head of sales. If you look at the work you've done and the method that you were selling, because we talked before also about how a lot of sales coaching and sales training still focuses, certainly internally in an organization, on the product and selling the product, selling the service. What was one of the biggest, I guess, lessons through that time that led you to co-found Veles, and what then becomes the differentiation of what you guys do today?
Yeah, so the origin of actually starting Veles originated in pricing. Pricing for sales teams is probably the most frustrating, kind of the least tech-enabled part of a sales motion. You could have incredible call recording and all of these document generation tools, and you have these amazing demo simulation products and ROI calculations. Then all of a sudden you get to pricing and you're left with like a spreadsheet. And then you have like CPQ tools. So I've always worked at really large organizations, so they usually have something like Salesforce CPQ or Zora CPQ, two commonly enterprise level tools. And they're built to generate an order form and then to manage revenue recognition,
Yeah.
which is super important. I don't want to understate that, but it's absolutely a finance exercise. So now we're having, usually the organizations I've been a part of, 500 sellers, 700 sellers, 1,000 sellers using a tool built strictly for finance. And they're using that tool to do the most important part of their sales cycle, which is actually build the deal structure and present pricing back to their customer. And so I've got really frustrated using those tools as a rep. I got really frustrated setting up those tools, building those tools as a head of sales. And I wanted a way for not only my sales team, but myself to be able to build multiple options for my customer.
Yeah.
Hey, here's what it looks like if you go down this path, or here's a 1, 3, 5-year deal. Like, here's all these different options. Like, you shouldn't have to look at an order form, tell me it's wrong, wait for a week, let me come back and present you something else that's probably a little bit closer, but still wrong. And so that was the origin of really trying to build a product that helps sales teams sell better. And through that, we've learned a lot, and we've kind of brought it holistically around how do you position, present, and justify a product offering.
Love it. Love it. So hang on, are you saying that, and this is me talking with my tongue firmly in my left cheek. Are you saying, Simon, that organizations, even though they say they're very buyer-centric, their methodologies and their process around pricing is very self-centric?
I think that's probably fair to say in some ways. I mean, I think everyone sets out to be very buyer centric, but the systems that they have at their disposal are not their buyer centric. The systems they have at their disposal are they're positioned as buyer centric, and so it needs to take it a step further. You need to not buy a product that's focused on you. You need to buy a product that's helping you focus on your customer.
Yeah.
And so it's one layer deeper. And so it's, candidly, it's really hard for a lot of organizations to find a tool that does that. But I think we're starting to get more and more of those tools out there today.
And from an experience point of view, obviously that was the catalyst where it was born out of your frustration of probably not having the flexibility that would match the buyer's experience you're trying to create. So you get to a point where you've done fantastic in the buying cycle so far. You get to the point in when we're going to start talking about some financials and put some options on the table, but you're then constricted by the toolkits that were available to you in order to present that. Did you find that that was restrictive in terms of the buyer's experience at that point in the process was not enhanced? It was actually reduced. That made it harder to close deals, and hence that was one of the catalysts to make it a little bit easier.
Yeah, I think, the reality is without tools to make this process easier, sales will always kind of revert to what I consider kind of old school methods,
Mm,
which is modeling things out in spreadsheets and then building slide decks from scratch,
yeah.
basically. And so, what I would do as a seller is I would build out, a greater presentation in a slide deck or a PowerPoint, and I would give every pricing option as a slide in that deck. So I would have all of my business case kind of value messaging. I'd have all of the product marketing slicks in there. And then I would say, hey, let's go down build your own adventure. And here's the paths I built for you.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of the best sellers out there are doing that,
Yeah.
but it leaves them to do it all manually.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing. So we talked before that a lot of organizations focus on their product, their service, and how to sell that service to a buyer versus the exceptional organizations and dare I say the exceptional salespeople will actually put themselves in the shoes of the customer and look back into the organization and say, okay, what is the problem that I'm trying to solve? And does this organization that I'm dealing with, do they have a possible solution to that problem? Now it's the
Exactly.
salesperson, it's the organization that can really understand and probably articulate the problem that the customer has better than the customer can articulate it. That's going to have a high level of credibility, which means the pricing objection that often comes in a lot of conversations in the buying cycle will be minimized if you present it in the right way.
Yes, absolutely. And I think in addition to mitigating a lot of those pricing questions that come up, if you're able to do that, as you articulated, you also have a clear understanding of urgency
Mm,
because we know the priorities they're looking to solve. And it's not just a here's our product and all the benefits. It's, hey, you told me this is a huge problem for you, and here are all the stats and metrics around it.
mm,
Like, no one wants to stay in the status quo when we understand that. Instead of it just being a positive value driven conversation around a product, it's let's solve
mm,
those problems. Like, let's
mm.
not let you go another day with this issue.
Yeah, and that's the key thing. And so when you look at I guess the work that you've done and what you've created, um, and I always like asking this, what's the differentiator? So I'm sure there's other companies out there that are doing what they think is similar to you. But what makes you different? What is it about Veles that is the differentiator that can help with sales effectiveness?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think Veles is not inventing anything new. I think we're just making it much easier for organizations to adopt a sales methodology that is supportive of the way people should be selling nowadays.
Mm,
So we call it use case based sales, but one thing that Veles does really well is, we can pull call transcripts or, if you're using Gong or some of these other tools, and we can identify what are the use cases that this customer's coming to you for.
yeah.
Why are they here? And then let's build a business case around each use case. It's kind of a lot to say sometimes, but if you can build a business case around each use case your customer has identified and cares about, then you can prioritize those use cases and you can understand, like, hey, what are the top priorities you're looking to solve? Kind of regardless of our product suite,
Mm,
these are the things you've told me are important. Which one of these do you want to solve right now versus solve later?
mm,
And so I always like to think about this simple equation in any way that I sell and the way that our team sells and the way that our product works, which is priority plus use case equals execution. And that's because, you may be trying to sell your entire product suite, but your prospect needs to solve one problem.
Yeah.
And so I would be working on, hey, here are the 5 or 6 use cases you told me that are interesting to you. But I know for a fact you're trying to solve this one. So why don't we just move forward with this one use case, and we'll do this successfully. We'll come back and we'll look at solving the other 5. And I think that's a fantastic way to look at the sales motion nowadays, especially as you're selling more agents with credits and tokens and kind of irrelevant information that the customer doesn't necessarily care about. They care about the work you're going to do or the outcome they're going to get.
And so I just wanted to clarify one thing, because there might be people listening to this that might think, what's use case? Use case is a specific identified challenge, problem, issue. Yeah, is that what your definition is?
Yeah, I think of a use case as any reason for you to use our product or the way in which you're going to use our product. So if you're going to use our product to solve a problem, that is a use case. You identify that problem and what they're looking to accomplish.
Yeah.
And then that's a use case you use in your sales cycle.
Nice. Nice. So then the approach then to selling, which, hey, it's age old, but it's amazing how many organizations don't do this well, is to lead with the use case. And as you said, the priority plus the use case equals execution. So when you focus your attention as a seller on the use case that the customer has that they want to focus on solving, it now becomes more relevant. And if our whole approach is to shine the light on that use case, there's a higher probability that unless they're telling us absolutely what we call in Australia porky pies, which is lies, there's a higher probability they're going to say yes to whatever it is because they've told us that this is the problem they want to solve.
Absolutely. And to double tap on that, a lot of reasons why sales motions fail is because the person you're selling to isn't able to sell that to the rest of the organization. So, in my world, in my realm, we call it champions. I think that's pretty consistent across the sales industry. Yeah. Your individual you're working with can't champion your product internally. But if you kind of switch it to use cases, that's all that user cares about. So all of a sudden, it's a lot easier for them to say, hey, CFO, we've talked about this a bunch of times. This is exactly what we've talked about. Here's a business case around why I'm going to solve this use case with Veles or with whatever solution you have.
Yeah.
And it doesn't become this grandiose, look at this incredible suite of products that's going to fix all of our issues over here and there and everywhere. It's like, this is what I care about as an individual in the organization. I'm going to fight for it. And you may be doing that through multiple threads in the organization to sell multiple use cases, but you kind of just identify what people care about the most and focus on that with those individuals. And they sell internally way, way better when they care about that specific use case.
It's such a, I don't want to sound derogatory here, but it sounds such a common sense approach.
Yeah.
So, Simon, why isn't it common practice?
It's I wish I had a great answer for you. I think everybody thinks about it, and then it's really hard to remember to be that basic. It's so easy to jump into value proposition language. Yes. And it's often very hard for sellers to just sit in the pain that a customer feels and really like keep digging into it. It is very much first principles thinking, like, let's just stop. Why are we here? Like, why are you on the phone with me?
Yes.
And then diving 5 layers deeper in there gives you so much context.
Yeah.
And then realistically gives you a better chance at actually solving that problem later on, so you actually know what the problem is. But it's really easy for sellers to just say, hey, let me show you this shiny demo. This is the shiny car moment of my presentation. I just want to get to this. Let me show you whatever it is. And if you don't stop and ask about problems and sit in that pain, you never fully understand, and then you're just flying blind. Maybe you presented the perfect demo, and the deal closes anyway. That happens all the time.
Yeah.
But you're leaving it up to chance, basically. You're not taking control of that sales cycle.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that because there is lots of stats out there that the curious to demo to committed, the a drop off there is extraordinary, and it's almost like the metrics of a lot of organizations is how many outreach did you make, how many leads do we get, how many marketing versus sales qualified leads do we have, what percentage then can get converted to a demo, and then from that, how many do we close? It's all focused on we've got to get a demo because we know that if we get a demo in front of our customers, we can close them, which is all about the shiny thing syndrome, right? So you mentioned before this is first principle selling, which when you think about it, back before we had the big behemoths of the world like Woolworths and Bunnings in Australia and Home Depot in the States, you used to have a corner store, and the corner store was manned by a person who typically owned that store but they're also the salesperson. And they were the ones who were the trusted advisor for everybody that came into that store. And what were they really good at? They were really good at diagnosing what a problem was so they could provide the best solution for that particular problem. This has been happening for hundreds of years. So
Yes.
why are we making it so complicated?
Yeah. I still love a corner store over a large chain. I think it's incredible when you walk in and someone remembers you and goes, do you want the usual? Or I think that's such a great place to be, but everyone wants more and everyone wants to scale, and you just can't do that. I think you still can do that at scale. You just have to be way more practical and thoughtful about it. You have to
Well, I
remember
think
to
it,
stop and
yeah,
ask.
and that's the thing. It's stop making it about you and your product. And as I said before, I often say to sales teams, and I give them a challenge. Your challenge for the next week is to, when you're speaking to your customers and prospective customers, not to proactively talk about your product. So don't lead with your product. In fact, if you can have a whole conversation and not mention your product, you get a gold stamp because
Yeah.
it's not about your product.
Yeah, I won't mention this person's name, but many, many years ago, there was a senior seller who I was shadowing a little bit, trying to learn from them. And they would go through 5 hour on-sites with customers, never demo the product. They would they would try and go through the entire sales cycle. They were usually selling, 6 to 7 figure contracts,
Yeah.
never presenting the product at all. They
Okay.
would just focus on pain and just focus on why it was important to them. I think that was a little bit extreme. I was like, I don't know. It seems like we know so much about them now. Let's present the product. But I think there's a happy medium. And I think if you err on the side of just understanding every bit of their business and why it's important, you can present the best demo ever.
Well, and I think the key point there is what you just said is that it needs to be relevant. And
Mm-hmm.
how presumptuous of a salesperson to go into an organization and think they know what the problem is that the customer's having, and then lead with, hey, let me do a demo of this software because I know this is going to solve all your quote unquote problems, versus, hang on, the demo should be the last thing you're thinking about. My entire purpose and intention here is to figure out whether you actually have a problem. Now, there might have been an inbound lead that came in, there might have been a cold call that was made out, and they've said, hey, we're interested in having a chat to you. But that doesn't mean that they're interested in buying your product. They're interested in maybe exploring something. So do the exploration, figure out what is the use case of this particular customer, and then and only then think about what can I now present them that will be matched with the use case. But if they don't want to solve the problem, then no matter what you say, you can have the best product in the world, it's not going to close because it's not going to solve their problem. So don't bother.
Exactly. I mean, there are world class, like there are such amazing organizations out there. I think if you look at how amazing the LLMs have grown and how crazy intelligent OpenAI products are.
Yeah.
But if somebody is looking to have a bunch of boxes taped up and packed, an LLM makes no difference to them. You can't go and present this incredible software if they literally need to pack boxes and ship them out. Like
Yeah.
you have to understand what the relevant problem is before you can even diagnose a solution and yet even present something. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's just coming back to first principles, understanding those use cases is gold for sales motions now.
All right. So with that, Simon, thinking about obviously through your experience, you had some frustrations with, I guess, the pricing models that you had to work with. As you said before, they're very much centered around internal and finance and helping I guess, the company manage and measure the stuff that we're selling. Um, Specifically, what does Veles do in terms of, it mentions here that it's a collaborative AI workspace for enterprise sales, and it can bring pricing, return on investment, and use case narratives into the one place. So, what
Mhm.
does it actually look like, and what sort of input does it require? And specifically, at what stage in the buying cycle is it best to have Veles like introduced into that?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think it's going to be different for some orgs. So, we work with small teams that have 5 sellers, and then we work with large teams with 3,000. And so it's always a little bit different per organization. But really, where Velis starts is we're going to integrate with the call recording solution that you have, so we can get the context from all of your presentations, conversations, etc.
Hmm.
uh, Through those, we can automatically identify use cases. So specifically calling out, okay, here's something your business, solves, and here's something that they want. And we can start to marry up those two things. We build a business case using some help from the LLMs to basically like prompt engineer a really nice business case together based on the context and obviously what your product does.
Yeah.
And then depending on what type of business or pricing model you have, if you're a credit-based model, we can help estimate the number of credits to accomplish those use cases. Because I think that a lot of organizations are like, hey, it's going to be 1 million credits. And you're like, I don't know what that means. And so really trying to help these organizations position their credit-based model with the actual value they provide their businesses, their customers. Um, and then for anyone who's not credit based, we support all of the different pricing models that you might have. So that could be, like one of our customers, Procore, who, they have annualized construction volume. So
Mhm.
they need to be able to model, hey, this construction company is going to do $100 million in construction. What does that equate to in costs for them? And so we can kind of go from, all right, these use case narratives, which we can associate ROI to and value messaging to, bringing those into a pricing conversation,
Mhm.
and then being able to take that pricing that we've calculated and modeled. That can be scenario 1, 2, 3. That can be 1 year, 3 year, 5 year deals. And then we build that into a presentable format. Usually that's Google Slides or Word Docs or Google Docs or a PDF. Doesn't really matter what format, but we're going to have basically one click, push to any of those formats so that the sales team can go and present those really
Mhm.
elegantly and quickly.
Okay.
Uh, then we're going to go ahead and track every version so we can understand sales team led with this price. They made a concession at version 3. We move forward with the deal at version 5. And then we integrate with pretty much all of those traditional CPQ tools. Those tools I told you were for finance. They have a really
Yeah.
important job, but they're not built for sales teams. And so we'll integrate with those tools so that the sales team doesn't have to go there. They can just say, hey, push this, get this deal done for me. And it'll
Yeah.
send it over, generate an order form, get it signed. And so we basically take a sales team from first call, help them build the narrative around why this deal is important to the customer, price it, present it, and close it.
And from I guess, a business case, since you've been running this business, what are some, because I'm interested in use case for you, right? In terms of,
Yeah.
so you work on use case within the business. What's the use case here? So you mentioned before that you're working with organizations that might have 3,000 salespeople. You're working with organizations that might have five. What have you seen as a typical, I guess, return or improvement for an average business or an average sales team that's said, hey, Veles was the differentiator here. It enabled us to, for example, reduce our selling cycle or our customers' buying cycle by 10%, 30%, 40%, increase profitability. I'm interested in what are some of the, I guess, the business outcomes from organizations using something like this.
Yeah. So there's been a handful. I think I can call out in one of our larger organizations. we reduced the time between first time they build a quote to getting a presentation done from somewhere between 30 to 40 minutes to 2 to 3 minutes.
Wow.
On average, they do 40 opportunities a month. So if you kind of extrapolate that out, it's a significant amount of time saving.
Mm.
But while saving that amount of time, we're actually able to also increase the average sales price of the SMB and mid-market divisions by over 5%. It varied by team, but somewhere between 5 to 8% ASP. And we were doing that specifically through pulling all of the logic that's in the CPQ tool, what we call deal desk for most of the sales
Yeah.
orgs. Hey, here's a discount threshold you're about to hit, or hey, don't package these things together because deal desk is gonna, flag the deal and it's gonna slow down. We're
Mm.
actually able to use all that logic in the same interface they're building all of their pricing, and eliminated a significant number of deals even having to go to deal desk, which most of the time was for discount thresholds, but it's a lot of different examples that could fly through their deal desk rules. And then on the other side, we've actually helped some organizations better design their pricing.
Mm.
So we have an entire pricing and packaging engine, and you can A/B test pricing models. So you could say, hey, this 10 people is going to use this pricing model, and this 10 people is going to use this one. We're going to see how it performs next to each other. And that's something that's incredibly difficult in a traditional Salesforce environment to do.
Yeah.
And so from a time savings and efficiency side on the sales, and also from a strategic layer, helping to more quickly iterate on pricing models and make sure you have the right margin and value.
Because I'm thinking as you're saying that a lot of this would be built in terms of thresholds, boundaries, barriers, and stuff that you need to be aware of. I mean, back when I was selling, there'd be a finance department that you need to deal with. There'd be commercials you need to deal with, and so there'd be people involved. And depending on their workload, it might have been, talk about reducing from 40 minutes to two. It might be 4 weeks before you get
Yeah.
somebody that can actually dedicate to a business case. What we're saying here is if you have all the inputs and you're gathering all this information, you know what good deals particularly look like, you know what the thresholds are, but you've also got the flexibility from a seller's perspective to look at all the different variations you can put to the customer that is all based on the user case that you've actually started the process with, not leading with what is the best profitable deal for us as a seller.
Exactly. And we can do some really incredible things now. We can look at, hey, here's all the other deals that are in the same industry, same size, same segment, same region that have closed in the last quarter.
Mm.
Like, do you want to use that same product selection? We can do a lot of recommendations as it relates to what a seller should do on a deal. And it speeds up their learning curve, especially for new hires. If you bring on a new hire inside of a really complex, large org, learning
Yeah.
how to sell that product is hard. And then also on the deal desk side, yes, so many deals hit the CFO's desk. So
Yeah.
many hit VP of finance. Deal desk is constantly putting out fires left and right. And that's because deal desk on average has to touch over 50% of deals that go through an organization. And for a lot of our customers, that's like 17,000 deals a year, 20,000 deals a year. So you're talking about a deal desk team who's just constantly looking at these transactions. And so we can, first off, integrate that into their environment like Slack or Teams, so they
Yeah.
don't have to constantly go to an email thread. And we can automate a lot of those approvals as well. So kind of skimming off the bottom some of those deals that the deal desk team just shouldn't spend their time on, so they can be more
Yeah.
strategic elsewhere.
Love it. And I guess on the customer side, you said that I guess from a seller side, we can reduce almost like the selling cycle, I guess the quote to cash cycle becomes quicker. What's been the experience around customer and buyers' experiences in terms of do we see customers thinking, man, this was a really easy purchasing process. We've now got a solution that is really specific to our unique problem, which means, hey, this organization we're dealing with now really gets us versus, oh, we just bought another off the shelf sort of product and we're hoping it's going to work.
Yeah, so I think what's really nice from somebody who's coming to buy a solution, when one of our customers is using Veles to do that, there's a few things that out of the box just really help the buyer experience. And that's being able to present the build your own adventure style pricing presentation
Yeah.
in one place. Like, hey, here are the options you told me were important to you. I listened to you as a seller and
Yeah.
I built out all those options so you could just compare them like apples to apples. I think that's fundamentally missed in like 90% of sales orgs is they're saying like, hey, you told me three options, but I thought this one was the best. And the reason they say that is because they didn't want to go to their CPQ and build three options because it took
Yes.
20, 30 minutes to build each one.
Yeah.
And so that's just like fundamentally frustrating as a buyer. I am a buyer of a lot of software now as a CEO, more software than I like to admit. And if somebody doesn't show me the different options I wanted to consider, I usually will. Sometimes I still buy the product if it's absolutely have to, but
Yeah.
I'll tell them like, no, I want you to present me the options I told you because there's four different ways I can think about buying this product. And so it's really, really nice to be able to do that all in one go.
Mm.
But then doing some simple things like if you use Loom or if you use other kind of video recording tools, incorporate that into your presentation. Like we can, basically spin up a web portal and you can share kind of all these things in one place.
Mm.
It's very much not a sales room, digital sales room. It's just purely let me present to you our solution to all of the reasons you came here in
Yeah.
one foul swoop. And that's just been incredible for the buyer experience to be able to just absorb everything quickly. And I think that also speeds up sales cycles too. If I get to evaluate all the different scenarios I care about, I'm going to pick the one I like. And I'm not going to ask you to go back and forth with me until I finally get to that.
Well, and it means that if the buyer is looking at all the different use cases that they've articulated that they wanted to compare to come up with the best solution that's going to solve their problem that they said they wanted to solve, it almost takes away a lot of the objections because we've actually qualified them through the whole way. And if we've built this that's customized for their particular problem, if they then turn around and say, "No, I don't want this," what are they effectively saying? They're effectively saying, "Well, my problem was not really a problem, so I've just wasted your time," which is probably giving you a good service anyway because it probably wasn't a customer's going to convert in the first place.
Yeah, and usually you're going to weed out a lot of those people through, these conversations because you're
Yeah.
saying, "Hey, tell me exactly what you're looking to solve and I
Mm,
will go and do that." And as a seller, you should be asking them for a lot as well. So it should be
mm,
homework on both sides.
totally.
I think that there's so much value in having those bespoke pricing conversations and really like holding them to what they asked for.
Mm.
And yeah, it's just I have had a hard time not presenting pricing that way for the last few years because it just goes so much better that way.
So I was going to ask you, Simon, with all the you mentioned before, you're buying a lot of software, more software than you care to admit. Have you got well, that could be a reciprocal business arrangement for those organizations to take Valus and use a service to sell back into you. That would make it easier.
Yes, I am the most annoying buyer of software, I think, because I don't usually sign a contract until I've at least met with someone director or VP level up to pitch my
Yeah.
own product. And all the people in sales
To
cycles
fit
with
your
me
own
now listening
product.
will roll their eyes and say that's true. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's so interesting because I just love talking to salespeople because I feel those pains. I
Yeah.
was a seller for 10 years. And so it's easy for me to just say a few things and for them to go, yep, exactly. And it leads to a very fun and easy conversation for me. So hopefully it's not too onerous on the AEs trying to sell me product.
But it's almost old school selling with 21st century technology that just amplifies that at the end of the day, people want to do business with those who they know, like, trust, and remember. And if I can, throughout the entire buying process, create a good custom experience and importantly, provide information that is consistent and specific with their needs and their desires, their wants, their problems, then it makes it easier not just for them to think, yep, this is the right organization for me and this is the right solution for me, but they're also going to tell others that want to have a similar experience if they care about them to do the same thing. So, I mean, from a selling organization, your marketing budget should be theoretically reduced. Not that it will, because there'll be other things you want to spend it on. Because the quality of the customers should go up, the quality of the buyers, and then when you think about the life cycle value of a customer, you're going to have a lot more customers that are what we call sticky. They're gonna stick around because of the experience you've created through a whole cycle.
That's the hope. Absolutely. I think that's we've been successful in that so far. I'd also say like we spend almost zero on marketing. We're pretty much all word of mouth so far. And I really like that. I think it's not going to scale forever. We're
Yeah.
gonna have to start spending some money at some point, but I'll do it for as long as I can, just constantly building a good experience that people like. And so when they go to the next company, they call us.
Well, I mean, 3 years and you've built a pretty substantial business now. That's pretty cool without having to spend too much on the outbound side.
Yeah, yeah. I am constantly learning though. I think outbound sales changes daily, and I'm learning how to use all these incredible new tools. So, I'm a chronic free trialer of a lot of tools, and a lot of them don't stick, but some of them really do, and they're incredible. So I'm excited to
Nice.
keep exploring how to do outbound sales in 2025, 2026.
Yeah, nice, nice. So with that, what are you looking at? What are you looking forward to in terms of 2012, 25 and beyond, in terms of um, I guess the outbound sales, the work that you're doing, where do you see the organization Veles moving to? Is there a next level that it can get to? Or is it more about just expanding I guess the domination that you've got in the marketplace?
I think we want to just stay incredibly focused on how do we make every sales team better.
Yeah.
If that's our North Star, if that's what we if that's the lens in which we build product, the lens in which we sell our product, then I don't think we can go wrong. And
Mm.
so I don't know exactly where that'll take our product in 2026. I know that where it's taken us to now is from pricing to value engineering, being able to really support some of these newer age companies selling credits and use cases and stuff like that,
Yeah.
usage. Where it'll go, I don't know, but all I know is that we will continue to make sellers better at their jobs. And my goal would be, I think this is pie in the sky because I don't know if it's fully possible or in our control, but my goal would be that every company that uses Veles, they have like 100% quota attainment always. Like that would
Yeah.
be amazing if I could keep, if that was our North Star. And so we always look at how do we make kind of the middle or lower end of the market better at every single one of our customers. If they aren't hitting quota, what can we do to make them better?
Yeah.
And so I'm just going to stay on that as long as I can. I think that's the world I want to dominate, if that makes sense.
And there's no reason why that can't happen. Because I don't know there's any well there's I don't think there's a sales team on the planet that's happy with their sales target in the first place. But if they can use a methodology, use software, use something like Valus to help them shorten the sales cycle, that's going to increase um, the likelihood of them wanting to get involved in a product like Valus to then give them an opportunity of getting closer to their sales target. Who wouldn't want to do that? So it's a great ambition. And what it will do though is, and from our conversation, I can see that using something like Valus, when you actually put all the different components into a business case, you can very quickly work out whether the customer I'm speaking to is actually a decent customer, or am I talking to the wrong customer? Is there simply a mismatch, and I'm trying to retrofit my product into what I think is a perceived need? So it's the peg into a round hole, or the square peg into whatever it is, that analogy. Versus, hey, I'm now going to be more targeted, which means the targeting of the customer where there's a use case and they've said they want to solve it, there's a high probability that I'm going to be able to close that deal, give them a great user experience. They're going to want to come back and buy more. They're going to talk to their friends, and my quota will be taken care of. Hey,
Exactly. I also think there's something so incredible about if you know a customer wants to solve 3 or 4 use cases, your initial contract was just for one of those use cases, you now have a super clear path on that white space to do upsell and cross-sell activity.
yeah,
And what we're seeing already early in some of the new features we've released is actually understanding that like upsell signals that would drive a customer to buy more of your product.
mm,
And so that's another thing in 2025 I'm going to be really excited about is upsell and cross-sell signals within your current customer base.
yeah. And if you can do that, it means there's less reliance now on your seller to identify that, because sometimes they won't, because sometimes they're so focused on, I've got this solution we're getting in place, and they miss the signal that could have made that deal so much bigger. If you got some intelligence, can
Exactly.
have some different triggers and say, hey, here's the indicators. This is what it's potentially telling us. It's going to help the seller make their quota as well, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, land and expand is a tried and tested path to winning large enterprise deals, but
Yeah,
you have to do the expand part.
yeah,
You can't just do the land. And so
that's it.
that's an area where I've seen a lot of success in my sales career, kind of landing initial contracts and really building that relationship internally and understanding how
Hmm.
to expand those transactions. But in an age of usage and credits and AI, you're not selling a new product, you're just selling more of your existing products. Now, how do you
Yeah,
do that? You
yeah.
associate it to those use cases.
Absolutely. And it has to be specific, because how many customers out there have a product or a service that they might use a component of it, but don't use all of it, right? So as a
Mm,
seller, we should be able to get really, really dialed in on, hey, this is the solution we have to that particular problem. We've got all these other things, but right now that may not be relevant. So we'll do the
right.
land first, and then we'll expand based on understanding more about, because if we then become part of their business, at least metaphorically, will be in a much better position because we've established credibility for them to expand that. The level of trust goes up, so the sales cycle should be a lot quicker and easier to get that selling because we've delivered value.
That's exactly right.
Awesome. So, mate, thank you for this. Has been a great conversation. For if there was, well, I should ask this: was there anything that you had top of mind that we hadn't covered that you wanted to put out?
No, I think we covered quite a bit. I mean, it was a fantastic conversation. I hope I can make it down to Melbourne and hit the MCG with you at some point. Maybe that's the next step.
Absolutely. If you do that, absolutely. I'm there. I'm there. Absolutely. So let's make that happen. So, and for people listening to this who want to learn more about you, connect with you individually, but also learn more about Veles, where can they do that? Where can they connect, and how can they find out more?
Yeah, so you can always find me on LinkedIn. I'm quite an active LinkedIn poster. You could also go to our website at getveles.com. Or yeah, those are the two places. Find us on LinkedIn. Veles Incorporated is the LinkedIn page. Getveles.com is the website. And then feel free to find me on LinkedIn, Simon Ooley.
Perfect. Mate, I'll put all that in the show notes, and I encourage people to check you out, and well, check you out in terms of connecting with you and having a conversation, but certainly going
Absolutely.
to your website as well. So, mate, I want to thank you. I know it's late afternoon in the States. You're going to go home now and spend some time with your family, your 20-month-old daughter. So I'll let you do
Yes,
that.
gonna go
And
make dinner.
you're making dinner?
Well, we'll find out. Maybe I'm picking up dinner at this point. Who knows?
Well, when I get that call, it's like the way it's said is I'm cooking dinner tonight, which is a code word for saying it's takeout.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. I
That's
will
what
cook it on
happens.
the way home as I pick
That's
it up.
it.
Yeah.
That's it. So it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast, and keep up the great work. And may you and Velas continue your world domination in the sales game, mate.
Appreciate it, Darren. Have a great one.
Thanks, buddy. Thank you for listening to the Exceptional Sales Leader podcast. I trust the information in this episode has been helpful in your journey towards becoming exceptional. And remember, please take the time to rate the show, subscribe to the show so other people can find it. But also, if I can help you, jump on my calendar, go to leadwithdarren.com and let's have a conversation about how I can help you along your journey to being exceptional.